Kenya Day 20. 2 days ago, I went for my first real photo shoot for the Enemies Project in the Kibera slums outside of Nairobi. Kibera is the largest slum in the world. It's huge, it's filled with garbage. Part of it's just built on top of a garbage dump. I met with two people there who were on opposite sides of the 2007 post-election violence that happened here in Kenya. One man is Luo. The woman was Kikuyu, which is one of the largest ethnic groups. Those two groups and a couple of others had extremely violent conflicts following the 2011 elections. The first man I was going to visit I'd met before when I first got to Kenya. His name is James. He fixes and repairs shoes and crutches. He's disabled from polio, and so he has learned how to fix orthopedic shoes and how to fix crutches and how to build them. He's an amazing man. He and his family lost everything during the election riots, and now he lives in a shack with his family on the edge of a train in Kibera, on the side of a hill that's totally covered with garbage. He makes very little money, and yet he's extremely well spoken and has tried to start a nonprofit to support disabled people like himself. The night before I went in, I had a chance meeting with a woman who came to stay at the same place that I'm staying from New Zealand, who is also disabled in the same way as James from having polio as a child. She expressed an interest in my project, and I thought it would be an interesting thing to take her with me to meet James. So we went in together. She came into Kibera with me, even though it's difficult for her to travel a long ways on her crutches. She's pretty amazing. She and James met, and it was an incredible meeting. It was just a wonderful thing to behold. James was amazed and totally grateful to meet a woman from New Zealand who is disabled in the same way that he is. Then we went over and met another woman who had been affected by the post-election violence. She had to flee her home in Kibera when the election violence happened because gangs were coming through and killing any Kikuyu they found. She saved her own life and those of her children. Then a year or so later, or maybe 2 years later, she moved back at the urging of her Luo friends, who are supposed to be her enemies. Now she lives in a small place. It was rented to her by her friends. It's teeny. It's maybe less than 10 feet by 10 feet, and she lives there with her 3 children. It's off of this teeny little passageway. It's maybe less than 3 feet wide. And then we all went over to meet James, and she and James met for the first time. People from the opposite side of the conflict. And it was pretty wonderful. They'd both talked about how they've moved beyond what had happened, and they talked about forgiveness, and they laughed together, laughed about being photographed and how funny that was. It was an amazing moment. It made me think that this project is really worth doing.